slowly increasing their workout time until we get them to showable
Condition.
fitness.
Yeah. Okay.
And so horses, the saddlebreds need to be incredibly fit to compete, because horses that fade throughout the class are penalized.
All right.
So you want your horse to be bright, and so I think the main factor to brightness is fitness. So if their fitness level is high, then they're going to be expressive and look like they're putting on a show easier than a horse that's not fit.
And that's also why you can't ride them every time they need a workout, is because if you ride them, say, once a week, they're fresh and they're excited for you to get on their backs. And so you can't only ride your horse for the week. It's hopping on. We have the pleasure of being able to hop on a lesson horse from across the street, but it's not just, there's a lot of work that the rider has to do to keep their form, that's not just riding their horse.
So I'm hearing that rotation is like an essential element in order for you guys to get the most out of the horses.
Yes. Yeah. And it's just so important, because if you rode them every day, you take the fun out of riding for them. When the way that our philosophy works is, if you keep it fresh and exciting, then they're going to have more fun, and it's because it's going to be something new. And so that's something that I think most saddlebred trainers try to accomplish, but that's something especially we focus on.
All right. You hit on a key point just now, a couple of minutes ago, that I wanted to bring up. You were talking about like the different muscle groups that are trained. You were talking about having an off season. You know, your winter break is kind of the off season. I feel like that's really important because, you know, I run my sports channel, and, you know, I wanted to have you guys on here because I think there's a lot of things that are sports that people don't necessarily think of sports when they see it, and I feel like this is one of those things, and you just hit on a lot of great points as to why this is a sport.
And the horses are treated like professional athletes. They get chiropractic adjustments every 3 months, massages, vitamins. Their grain is balanced with vitamins, and they get protein and joint supplements just like any professional athlete would get. And so it's really amazing. I mean, these horses are treated like gold, and a lot of people, I think, just don't realize how much goes on behind the scenes.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate how much you guys, you know, you care about your horses and care about them getting the proper condition, and I think that's something that people should know about. I wanted to ask now about another connection, you know, different sports is a season. What's your season like? I know you know, certain sports you have your spring training or whatever, your preseason sort of, then you have your regular season, then if you're good enough, you go to your playoffs, and then you have your off season. With this, like, I wasn't sure if it was like golf, where, you know, you have golf and they don't really have that format, but they'll have like, you know, 4 or 5 big matches a year. It's like 4 or 5 big championships sort of. So what's your schedule look like? What are the different horse races that occur throughout the year?
So the horse show season generally starts in about April is our first show, and goes until October to November. And there's a variety of shows throughout the season, ranging in difficulty and competition level as well. So this year we were really confident with our horses this season, and we were like, we're going to try to hit a couple of the big ones. So we started by a local show in Springfield, Mass. We always go to that show. It's kind of a good opener, see where you're at. That was very successful for both of us. Definitely were able to pick some things to work on for our next horse show, which was in Pennsylvania. This was our first time at this show, and it's a super fun show, but it's definitely one of the more competitive shows we've gone to.
The idea of going a little bit more south was that our horses would get seen before we hit the World's Championship, and that's an incredibly important thing, is that judges need to be able to know what's out there. So when they see it come through the gate in Louisville, they say, oh, I saw that horse in Devon, and I really like that horse. Maybe, you know, maybe I don't need to watch it as much because I know what it's going to look like. And the Devon was a great test of their fitness, because it was a little bit longer of a class. So we started at UPHA, which was a shorter class, and they didn't need to be as fit because northern shows are classically shorter than southern shows. That's just how they run them here,
Okay.
the classes. So the class time up here would be about like 5 to 7 minutes. In Devon, the class time was about 10 to 11 minutes. And in Louisville, the World Championship, we're looking at like 20 minutes of a class.
So there's more time so that they have more, because they have more things to evaluate?
Right, because you have 3 judges that all need to make up their mind. So that's really why the classes are longer. And they run them longer so that they can see what horses are going to fade and which ones have stayed nice. They use the longer time to kind of pick horses off. So the ones that fade, it's an instant, markdown. And that's kind of how they do it. So Devon in May was our first test of the fitness. And Houston came in second in his class, so he got a little bit of a reputation going into Louisville, and so people get to see him a little, and that was nice. And it also, the Devon Horse Show it's a big event, and for our industry, so it was nice to come in second there.
Also, what's cool about advertising and reputation in general, reputation has a lot to do with this, with the judges' picks, etc. And so we did there's magazines, just magazines of horses, and we did a couple of advertisements this year, which was like, Idletime Farm presents for Devon, or Idletime Farm presents for Louisville, and that's a big part of it too, is just the advertising in the magazine, so that the judges see that and are like, okay, I know that horse, it has a reputation, I'm gonna mark it down.
Okay.
And this up here, what I found fun about going south to Devon and Louisville was that up here we show against the same horses almost every time, and it kind of gets repetitive, but when we go to new horse shows, we might see horses we've never seen before, and Devon was a good test of how our horses stack up against the really elite and nice horses. So it was a little bit of a affirmation that we're going in the right direction to do well there. So it's like that was kind of the halfway point in our road to Louisville. And sorry, I kind of breezed over what getting to a horse show looks like.
That's all right.
So we pull into the horse show about 3 days before the classes start, and we set up what are called stall drapes. They're maroon fabric that we hang up, and it makes a nice setup. It looks just like back there, and so we put those up in our banner so that people know that Idletime Farm is at the horse show. And for the days leading up, the horses get acclimated to the new environment, and so that way when we show them, they're not too tired. They can rest up before the class, and we can also work the horses a day before so that they are working in the environment they're going to be showing in. It'd be like if you just
You can't just fly in the day of the marathon.
you can't fly in the day of the marathon. You gotta
Get a good night's sleep.
get a good night's sleep and wake up fresh.
Okay, I think that's good. Do you guys want to talk more? Let's see, there's a couple things I wanted to go over. Just talk about the league in general, and what you want people to know about that. And the other thing I wanted to get to at some point is specific races and like what has happened there. Are you proud of that? What happened there? What was that process like? Stuff like that. If you had specific races you want to bring up.
I'll talk about the World Championships.
And shows, yeah.
And you want me to talk about what would you like me to talk about?
Probably the first part of the question.
Yeah, so we're just gonna go over like the league in general and like what the requirements are, if you haven't touched on any, like just more details about that perhaps. And then other than that, I think it's just about like going over just what specifically you guys have done, what specific shows and stuff like that you've been to, and what happened there that you're proud of, like accomplishments.
So the league, if you will, is the American Saddlebred Association, and they're kind of the governing body of all the horse shows that we attend. And they have a set, this industry is so steeped into tradition that there are things that we do that date back 20s in the turn of the century, and we ride in three-piece suits, which is kind of funny to think about, that you're going to do a physical activity in a suit, but it's hard in the summer, but kind of feels nice when we get
So,
fall.
what's the tradition behind that? Like,
So that's how people dressed when they made the rules. So they said, we're gonna make that the standard uniform, if you will, because it was the 20s and you look at a picture and they were mowing their lawns in three-piece suits. So that's kind of the thought behind that. And men and women wear the suits, and so it's the same thing. And it's just, there's so, ringmasters wear red at night. If you ever seen like the circus, they kind of look like those ringmasters.
There's a bugle that they play before each class.
Yeah, the bugle sounds the call to the class. Oh, and they play the organ during the classes. So there's a lady, I think her name is Amy, she comes and she plays the organ during the classes, and it makes it look like the horses are dancing. And the origin behind that was, back in Kentucky, they wanted to draw people up to the horse show. So they played the organ, and people heard it down in the midway, and they're like, oh, where's that coming from? They came up and they saw the horses going to the organ, and they sat down and watched the horse
so
show.
that's interesting. That's like a kind of a unique way of advertising, I guess. You guys kind of like had like that, you know, you have the theme for your sport, and then that brings everybody out and draws the attention to it.
The breed wouldn't be what it was, that it is today, unless we had county fairs back in the day, and that's why we go to a couple of fairs, is we need to keep that tradition going. And because without the fairs, people wouldn't have seen saddlebreds, and they wouldn't have said, oh, that looks like a lot of fun, I want to do that. And so that's a big part of our breed history, are those fairs.
Okay. I want to get now to like specific achievements that you guys maybe want to go through a list of like races you've won and where you finished and what that means to you.
So my latest accomplishment was getting third at the World Championship this past August. It was, from the second I got on my horse's back, I just felt like this is going to be groundbreaking. This is going to be incredible. So I had a super good feeling about that after some previous setbacks before we hit the road. And it was just, it needs to come together for 20 minutes, and it did. And after the class, before they called the winning entries, I was just like, that felt incredible, but I did not know how I was going to stack up against these